Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everyone. She's unique in that she offers career guidance, but the specialty is helping veterans move their life forward and people who are looking to apply for a federal job. Radically different than a civilian applying, and especially when it comes to the resume. We're going to talk with her today about all of that. Her company is HOPEvolution, Veterans Employment Services, and she's Tracy Harris, and she's back with us. Hey, Tracy, how you doing today?
Hi, Steve. I'm doing very well. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, wonderful to talk with you once again. And let's start with the differences between applying for a civilian job and a federal position. Obviously, background checks are a little more elevated there with the government position, but what else can you tell us?
Well, the first thing is the size of the resume. So with the federal government, you can include up to 5 pages. You know, on your civilian resume, you can probably put bullet points. It can be 1 to 2 pages. You give a little brief bullet point about your skills or your specific talents for that particular job. But the government wants to know more about you because that is what they're going to use throughout the entire process, not just the application. They're going to go over your resume and during the interview. They're going to look at your resume and match it with the job vacancy initially to even determine if you're qualified. They're going to compare it to the requirements of the position, the specialized experience, look to see if it requires, if the job requires a license or anything like that. They're going to match it towards the assessment questions, which are weighted questions. They're worth points. So if your resume doesn't match up with at least points from 1 to 5, 5 being the greatest, then they're going to deem that you're not qualified.
Wow.
So that's one thing. And you have to give details. You have to tell a story. You have to use the STAR method, which is describe the situation, what tasks did you take, what action you took, what were the results of that process to show that you are competent to work that position.
That being said, are there keywords like they are with civilian resumes? My understanding, if you apply for a bigger job, they just put it through, and I can't think of the acronym ACT or something like that.
ATS,
Thank you. Where it's scanning the keywords. Are they doing that with government jobs?
Yes, they are. And I just recently saw an article that in the civilian workforce, they're also starting that very regularly now using the applicant tracking software. So the competition is so great with the federal government that they use the applicant tracking software. If you don't have those buzz and keywords from that vacancy announcement in your resume, but telling us what you did, don't tell a fib, but say exactly, what that vacancy announcement says. You may not even make it through to a person's hands. So the system or that software is going to automatically kick you out. And that's why you probably never hear back once you apply to a federal position.
Wow. Telling the truth, obviously, we should be doing that in our resumes. What if you have, and this is a true situation with a friend. So her spouse passed away suddenly, and she took some time off. Just needed it for her, the kids. So there was a gap of like 2 years in her employment history, but she was very uncomfortable just leaving that gap, wondering if they're going to wonder, what happened there. Should you explain that? How would you suggest to proceed there?
Yes, Steve. With the federal government, it's best to indicate the time frame and just put unemployed. And once you get to the interview, you can tell them exactly why you were unemployed during that time. Or you can create what is called a functional resume, which you're just giving the experience that you have for that position. But the federal government, of course, they look into your background. So If there's that time frame still that's not identified, it's going to hit you either on the interview side or on the background side. So it's best to go ahead and list the time frame. Just say, unemployed, and please ask more details, or details will be provided.
That part I'd like. See, I was a little uncomfortable saying unemployed because it almost sounds like you were pounding the pavement, you didn't get a job, and it just makes you feel like you're a failure. So to put something, unemployed due to personal reasons or something
Right.
like that, just qualifies it a little bit more, and they can ask for the details as they so choose. What are some of the other things when it comes to government applications and resumes, things that we should keep in mind?
Yes, one thing that'll really say you had the ideal application in front of you, and you're looking through the application and you realize, oh, they didn't tell us when they performed these duties. There was no time frame, month, year, closeout date, or still to present,
Mm.
or how many hours they worked per week. They would be considered not qualified, even though their background, their skills matched exactly to that job vacancy, and they scored 100% weighted on the weighted questions. They would be not qualified.
Wow. Okay. I'm imagining in terms of chronological order, resumes in general, is that still a thing where month, year, dash, month, year, what you did? Should we still be doing that?
Yes, for the federal government.
Yeah.
For the federal government, yes, you should. That's the most important thing, because the HR specialist is unable to determine what was it, part-time work, was it full-time work, and what they're trying to determine for 1 year specialized experience, that you perform that specialized experience for 52 weeks. And if we can't count it, then we can't count it.
Hmm. Is it radically different with the resume process for federal jobs as opposed to civilian jobs?
I would think people would probably say radical.
Okay.
There's just a lot to it, a lot of details into it. As I mentioned before, everything you say on that resume, they're using that through your background investigation.
Mm.
So I would always let people know it's best to go ahead and be honest, say, give us all the information that we asked for, or even more, because if you leave something out and it gets to the background investigation, that's going to throw up a red flag, and then they're going to be looking into things deeper and deeper and deeper, when it's not really something there, but
Hmm. Let's talk about the background investigation. How deep does that go?
Well, I would say it goes really deep. Now, OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, investigators actually ask you to give them references, a neighbor, someone whether family member or non-family member, and they will actually go to your house. They will go to that person's house
Wow.
and they will individually interview them based on whatever questions they need to ask. So they're going to actually physically show up in that process.
Does it go as far? And maybe we don't know for sure, but I'm curious. Potentially, could go as far as you got a red light ticket, you got a speeding ticket. Is that all that's coming up?
It can.
Okay.
Depends on the questions. So there is an integrity process once you pass through the application and the interview part. So it depends on who you're working for, how detailed or how specific they are on counting that against you, I guess you can say. We called it within the guidelines of acceptability. So we had guidelines of acceptability. If you fell outside that guideline, it may say in the last year, has this or that happened. So you would tell us, and depending on what it was, there was a level to determine whether or not you were inside or outside the guideline.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, depends on the job. If it's working for the FBI, They're going to know you have a parking ticket,
Right.
and whether you paid it or not. Um, Cover letters still a thing?
Yeah. Not a thing for the federal government.
Wow.
What
Okay.
we're I mean, it's okay to take it to the interview, but during the application process, when we're trying to make qualification determinations, we're looking for time to make sure that you're within that or you qualify based on 1 year's experience. Unless it's a positive education position where you're qualifying based on your degree or your licenses, your certifications, things like that. But if we're looking for the 1 year specialized, we really don't need to look at the cover. We don't need the cover letter. We're just trying to get you on that board.
What are some other things that somebody should be mindful when it comes to resumes, the application process, things that stand out?
Well, so I mentioned using the STAR method. So a specific position would probably be you were solving a certain problem came up while you were working with in a work group on your job, and so you were the one that spearheaded a solution to the problem. So then you would describe what was the problem, and what actions you were going to take to solve the problem, and what did you delegate to solve the problem with whomever you were solving it with. Was the result of saving the company money, time, things like that, and I would do that specifically for the job that you're applying for, because all we're looking for as an HR specialist is, can you perform the job that we have posted online? And that's all we're really looking for. So once we find the 52 weeks, we're moving on to the next person. But if you have a resume that's 20 pages, which we have seen before,
Mm.
usually that resume is set to the side because we only have so much time to process boards. So once we come back to you, we could get exhausted trying to find that 1 year. And more than likely, the person didn't have the experience with the 20-page resume.
Wow. Okay. Um, it's my understanding that nowadays, when you apply for a job, you should be talking about the results you got, not just your title. Is that the same thing with the government job?
Yes, yes, because we're all about that's your marketing tool. So that's like as if you were sitting in front of us, because normally the person, once they make the interview, they can tell you all about how they'll fit in, that position.
Sure.
On the paper, sometimes you can't bring it out of your head. So that's where I recommend you get a professional resume writer so we can ask you those questions to get it out of your head. With veterans, sometimes it might be hard for them because they're used to working as a team. So it's not all about what I have done, what I have accomplished. It's all about how I helped my teammate, how we completed the mission together, your mission thoughts or mission. But on that resume, we're looking at you. So pat yourself on the back.
Mm.
Tell us how great you are. That's what we want to hear.
A lot of times your parents would say, Stop, don't toot your own horn." And
We want you to toot your horn.
yeah, disregard that advice in this situation. And
Hmm.
Tracy, you help with the resume process, write the resume, if somebody so
Hmm.
chooses, all of that.
Yes. So, there's a resume builder at USA Jobs. Um, you can use the template that's on USA Jobs, but
Okay.
you still must have all of the information that's necessary in that resume. And of course, you can submit your own personal resume. So that's what we do. We help draw out those major skill sets to attract the recruiter or to draw the eye of the HR specialist as they're reading your resume. And we set it up in the format, a good format, so it's easy on the eyes, easy to read. Those action verbs are there, those buzzwords, and all of that is in that resume. What we also do is, based on the position, we'll pull down the general schedule job description. So, what does this at different levels? I'm trying not to get too deep, but
Hmm.
at different GS levels, there's benchmarks for every position that's posted on USA Jobs. So what I do is I pull down the benchmarks, I share that with the my resume writer, and then we pull your information out, put your personality into it and your talents along with your hard skills, and put that in a resume. So hopefully that person that's reviewing you, they won't have any problem saying, "Oh, let me hear more," because you
Sure.
want them to hear more, plus you want to make it through that software.
Well, yeah, that's kind of scary that you have software scanning. And by the way, I believe we should say at this point that don't get involved with making it graphically beautiful, and that the software doesn't know. It doesn't. You put your picture on there, it
Mhm,
doesn't see it. All of that,
mhm,
right? Just old
mhm.
school, copy, clean with the right keywords is key.
Correct.
Okay.
Because I mean, there were some applicant lists. You would have 500 people on there for one position. So the
Hmm.
person is we're just looking for specific information. And we're going on to the next person because we have to get the board done. And that's another reason why it may take a long time. Um, some of the boards they give you 180 days to make a hire off of that board. And so that's another reason why people may not hear back that quick. Yeah.
Wow. All right. There's a lot at stake here. If you want a government job, and this also applies to somebody who may be a veteran and wants to, they've left their tour, and now they're looking for a government job.
Hmm.
Um, how does that play in terms of preference with a somebody who's hiring in the government job, and it's a veteran
Hmm.
applying? Does the veteran go to the front of the line, so to speak, or does that carry a lot of weight?
Yes, they do get first consideration.
Gotcha.
So there's different paths that individuals can apply. So there's different ways a veteran can apply too. They can apply based on service connection, 30% or more. They can apply just on a what we call a public announcement, where there could be veterans and non-veterans on the board, but you rise to the top if your veterans preference adjudicates out that way. So you have to make sure that you have the proper documentation uploaded, because if we have your DD 214 but it doesn't show that you received an honorable discharge, you're a veteran still, but we can't adjudicate it to say, yeah, it's valid.
Wow. Um, Stands to reason if you're looking for a government job, you really shouldn't do it alone. There's a lot of little nuances, little tricks of the trade, if you will, that you are aware of. We talked about your background, Tracy, but how do you know all these little pieces of the puzzle?
Well, it's all still in my head from working with the government for almost 24 years. So I was an HR specialist in recruitment and placement, where I reviewed applications submitted online at USA Jobs and made the determinations to move people forward. I also worked in the interview process for about 4.5 years. So I know how that goes, and helping people complete their background investigation documents. So I've touched on that. And then also my partner, she's the same. She retired from the military and the federal government and HR background. Her strength is classification. Mine is staffing. So we put those together and try to help you get through that process.
You guys are the government job dream team. It's kind of what it
Oh,
sounds
thank
like.
you. I never thought of that.
Yeah. Oh, like perfect synergy, between your background and your partner's background and working together on this. Final thoughts. Final thoughts about applying for a government job, resume, anything that we didn't hit today?
Ooh, the resume is the key.
Is
That's
it?
your key in. I mean, you just want to get your foot in the door. Don't worry about the money, because if you just focus on the money, Yeah, that can hinder you actually. I mean, we know that you have an array of experience, but you got to get that resume right, no matter what position you apply for. Then
And,
of course, the benefits will come and they're going to pay you the rest of your life. But you got to get your foot in the door.
and unlike some other jobs, you may be able to get them on the phone. I got to believe that this is one situation where you're not calling them up and saying, "Hey, did you get my resume? Have a question." None of that. It's, kind of tailored to be automatic. So that's why you got to play the game. You got to play the game, in terms of the keyword identifier within the resume. All of this, when you submit it, it's got to be perfect.
Yes, and you can contact us on each vacancy announcement. There's a HR specialist contact information, but the problem is if we work in that board, we see that somebody's called, but if we are on time restraints, we may get to you after we work the board. So I would try to apply to a position as soon as it opens. That way that time won't be against you. But then some positions have application limits. Once it reaches 100 applications, that vacancy is closed.
Wow.
So you just have to watch what you're doing.
And be prepared, be proactive. You've crafted your resume. This is it. It's perfect. It's got all the keywords, and then look for that job and apply right away. Tracy, love all this information and detail. This is stuff that most people don't know. How can they connect with you?
Yes, I can be reached at my website at HOPEvolution.com, and that's HOPEvolution with 2 E's, or call me at 817-946-1437. That'll get me directly.
Awesome. Thank you for all the insight and all the information, for being here today as well. Looking forward next time we talk.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that I was invited. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Tracy. We'll be right back.
All right.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.